Hey, hello. You're with Wolf Gorlick on the road, not stuck in traffic. Couple-minute riff on IT and IT security. Thinking about how we decide on what we're going to do, right? Decision criteria. For me right now, it's deciding what I'm going to eat for breakfast after this video. But in terms of security, so oftentimes you'll hear people argue. I mean, at conferences, in boardrooms, in technology places, in CTFs, you name it. If you get a couple hackers together, you're going to hear them argue. And what do they argue? Well, you should do it this way instead of that way. You should use this SIM instead of that SIM. Your vulnerability management program should look this way instead of that way. Here's the best practice for always doing this. And you didn't follow them. But what's often interesting is person A did it their way for a very good reason, was successful. Person B did it the opposite way, was still successful. And you're like, well, what do you mean? Is it really this SIM versus that SIM? Is it really this versus that? Should I really be doing authenticated versus unauthenticated scans? The point is, too oftentimes we jump to the technology without looking at the decision criteria, without looking at why we should be deciding. From project management's perspective, I'll give you two examples. From project management perspective, that could be things like scope, budget, time, right? What's the most important to you, that whole golden triangle. If it's more complicated, it could be something like 5, 6, 10 different features or 5 different decision criteria points that you can lay out in a QFD form, which is quality functional deployment from Six Sigma. You basically list them down, you list them down, you weight them, you force prioritize them, you slow down so that you can be heard. We've had enough coffee this morning, you think? I think. So you list all your decision criteria, and you list the options, and then you rank them, and that allows you to make the decision. It's very important to know why you're doing something and what that decision criteria is, so that you can make sound technical decisions. I'll give you a perfect example. In the middle of what we're working on right now, we are time constrained, very time constrained, and we are very risk averse. We don't want to have any impact, right? So time and risk, number one thing. If you look at one of the tactics that we're looking at right now, which is doing vulnerability assessment, right? Doing a scan of the systems for vulnerabilities. 9 times out of 10 when I do that, I want to do that authenticated. I want to do that authenticated. I want to do as many ports as possible so I get a complete picture. And because when you're authenticated, it will oftentimes rule out a lot of false positives. When you're unauthenticated, it'll say, oh, this box is Windows 2003. You may have blah, 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 because it can't log in and double check. However, doing that, which is again my preferred method, takes a lot of time. Also doing that requires admin credentials, which takes time to provision. Also doing that requires that you introduce risk in the system because you're logging in and executing those checks. And for as good as vulnerability scanners have gotten these days, there still is the possibility for legacy systems in particular, there still is the possibility of tipping over a process or spiking a CPU at the wrong time or otherwise impacting production across systems. Therefore, with the goals of speed and low risk, with those as our decision criteria, we're doing it unauthenticated. Now, people watch this video, someone's going to watch it and go, well, you should, there's always an argument. Always an argument. But if you know your decision criteria and why you're doing what you're doing, making these decisions is significantly easier and more defensible. Bonus round, if you then tie those up to what I was talking about in a previous video, which is the principles for managing your security program, you're in an even better spot, right? You got your principles, map to your decision criteria, map to the tactics that you're doing, and those tactics are being done in a defensible way that is not best practice, is not the same way everyone else is doing it, but is the right way for your program and your objectives. That's it. I'm getting more coffee because clearly I need it. Cheers.